Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome to the Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose podcast. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about identity. And to begin, I want to share with you a quote that comes from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. And if you haven't read this, I highly encourage it. I just think it is a fantastic book. And I've talked about this book before. And so I encourage you to check it out, buy it, do whatever you can to find it and read it and really internalize what he is trying to teach you. But this is what he says. Rather than focusing on the outcomes that you want this next year, focus on the identity you would like to build. The goal is not to read 40 books this year, which might be a New Year's resolution you set. The goal is to become a reader, to develop that identity. The goal is not to run a marathon this year, which might be the New Year's resolution. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to lose 40 pounds. The goal is to become the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. The more that you organize your habits around an identity rather than an outcome, the more that you see the value in just sticking with it, even if it's a small thing. I love that quote so much because I have found that in my own life, developing my own identity is far superior than setting a New Year's resolution. So, number one, I think it is motivating from the beginning. You know, it helps like this is who I want to be. This is what what do I want to do? And that type of person, does these actions that I want to do. So, but here's the thing, motivation is a muscle and it gets tired really easily. And so when you really take on that identity, it makes it so that you don't even have the need to be motivated because it just becomes a part of who you are. So, for example, I love reading and I consider myself an avid reader. And I read every single day. And it's not because I have a goal to do that. It's just something that I do every day because I enjoy it. And that is, it's part of my identity. I am a reader. So how do you change your identity around something? So my guest this last Monday, Laura Bickler, she touched a little bit about this. So one of the things that you can do is to take a deep dive into knowing what that identity means to you. So you get your senses involved, you get creative in imagining conversations about how you embody this identity. You see yourself implement actions. You identify what you want to think and how you want to feel as a person with that identity. So again, to take back that reading. So if you want to be a reader, you think, okay, well, how would that be to read every single day? Or what would that look like for me? What kinds of books would I want to read? What do I want to learn? What kind of conversations would I bring up as a result from my reading? How would I think about myself as a reader? What do I want to feel as I'm reading these books? So that is a really important step into becoming an identity, right? You can take little steps. Also in Atomic Habits, he talks about just taking little teeny tiny steps. So if you want to be a reader and you're not one, maybe just for a while, sit down and hold a book for a whole week. You don't even have to crack it open. And then maybe the next week you're opening up the book. So, and then little by little, you're reading maybe 5 minutes and then 10 minutes or whatever the case may be. And you're the one who gets to set those parameters. Don't think big, think small in this instance, because what you're doing is you're creating an identity through the habit of doing something. And as you're doing that, you're thinking to yourself, how does this feel for me? Because I am a reader. Oh, look, I am a reader. I'm sitting down with the book. So you can also piggyback this with other goals. So for example, you can take like the word of the year. So I talked about this a couple weeks ago. If you've got a word of the year, you can take that word and go, okay, if this is what I want to focus on, then what identity does that invoke? So for example, my word this year is surrender. And I chose this word because I tend to want to force things and I don't always trust the process. I want to take control. And so I am surrendering my my want to take control of things and just trusting in the process of things. And so one of the identities that I want to create is my creative identity. I really want to trust that process of creation and building some things that I want to do this year. And so I am piggybacking this identity of being creative with my word of the year to surrender. I hope that makes sense. But anytime you can piggyback a habit onto something else that you automatically do, it becomes a lot easier to implement. And that is the same for the identities that we want to create. Now, something else that you can do is write affirmations about your identity. And I love this. I try to do this every single morning. And so for example, what you can do if you want to be a reader, taking this example again, you can say, and you got to write it down or get it out of your body in some way. If you're not a writer, if you can verbalize it. I know people who will record it into like their phone's memo and or yeah, the recording memo, and you can then play it back to yourself. So whatever works for you, but it's just that process of getting it out of your body and so that your mind can see it externally. And so you can say something like, if you want to be a reader, I love reading every day because it calms my soul. I find joy in reading because I love stories. I love learning from what I'm reading. So you can see that you can build on that identity through your affirmations, and you can do this for anything. All right. So the next one well, I'm going to share with you this something that I have absolutely loved. So, and I think it's one of the greatest forms of affirmations, and that is a coming up with a soul name. Now, I got this from one of my mentors. Her name is Jen Ridey, and you can look her up. But she teaches about having a soul name. And so what this is a name that using words that have really deep meaning to you, that is very descriptive of who you are in the core and what your purpose is. So in the 1980s, there was this animation or this animated cartoon, right? And it was called She-Ra. And if you're my age, I watched this all the time. I thought it was kind of the female counterpart to He-Man. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is finally there's a girl one. Right? There's a girl superhero with lots of power, right? Well, her name was She-Ra, Princess of Power. And I love that this would be like her soul name, right? So it's very descriptive words that talk about, who you are as a person and what you're able to do. And it can be anything, right? And so and you can see there's a lot of really fun like naming games. They're out there all the time where they take like the first letter of the month that you were born in and whatever is to your left. And they put that together in a name. So those are really fun. But this, your soul name goes a little bit deeper, right? And it is touching who you are divinely and what your purpose is. So how do you come up with a soul name? I think it's a really fun process. So, but it takes a lot of pondering and thinking. It's not just a sit down and do it. It really is kind of a soul searching activity. So the way I did it is I just started to ponder different words that had meaning to me. So you can look up lists of words, values or qualities that you want to embody, or just kind of think of those words that have meaning for you. Now, when I first started doing this, I really had no idea where to even start with it. It And so I kind of looked, at, okay, what am I hearing from other people about me? So, and that's another good place to start. And I really tried to look at the imagery that the different words evoked and the feelings that they evoked as well. And this is a really good exercise for your subconscious. So you want to involve that. And it's so super interesting. So when I did this, I really pondered. Like it took me several weeks to come up with my name. And I remember just kind of thinking about it night and day, and I would let my subconscious stew over it. And when I was driving, I would just kind of think about it and about different names and if those words fit me or not. And I was driving down in a nearby town, and this word just popped into my mind. And I was like, ooh, I really like that. I really like that word a lot. And but then I had to like put it with something. So it took a little bit more research. And that's just what this process was. It was, I have a little spurt of inspiration, and make sure when you get those, you write them down because you will forget. I was just on a conversation this morning where my friend talked about how she had this spurt of inspiration and she didn't write it down, went about her day, and it's been weeks and she hasn't been able, she was trying to choose her word of the year. And she said it was absolutely perfect, and I cannot remember what it was. So when you get those spurts of inspiration, make sure you write them down because sometimes they're really hard to retrieve if you forget them. So I was able to take that word that I really, really loved and build upon it. So and it's okay to have multiple phrases, like Shira was Princess of Power, but you can have multiple phrases. You can do just one word, but I think when you give it more words and make it a description rather than just a single word, it is super powerful. I also think that it's okay to, I mean, really, you can do whatever you want, but I think it's fine to go ahead and have multiple phrases too. So I have three phrases on mine. So mine is Soul Explorer, Champion of Light, and Vessel of Power. And I kind of see this of light. Champion was the word that came to me when I was driving. And so I had to figure out, oh, well, what am I a champion of? And so again, as I was pondering that, the word light came to me, and I just thought, yeah, absolutely. That totally describes me. And so you know how you have like those initial um images where you've got like one initial that's big in the center and then two that's smaller on either side. So that's kind of how I see this. Champion of Light is my bigger initial in the center. And then Soul Explorer and Vessel of Power are my lesser ones on either side. So I'm going to explain to you what these names mean to me. So Soul Explorer to me means it's a reflection of me loving to dive deep into my own soul and to help others know how to do that themselves for the purpose of healing, understanding, loving myself, that kind of a thing. Champion of Light reflects my desire to fight for truth and anything that brings joy and peace and love to the world. And then Vessel of Power reflects the skills and the talents and the influence that I have to accomplish everything that I want to do while I'm alive. So that's my name, Soul Explorer, Champion of Light, Vessel of Power. Having this has really, really benefited me. It has grounded me and it lifts me in on the days when I'm feeling down. And it's also my personal accountability when I'm finding myself veering off course. And it also helps me to stay true to my purpose. I feel like right now, these are my purposes in life. And what I am doing should reflect my names. It kind of like what we're going back to what I was talking about earlier. If something becomes your identity, you are naturally going to do it because it is who you are. And so it's moving into that space of identity that is truly, truly motivating and life-changing. So you also have permission to change it. I know people who have, as their life changes, they realize, oh, their soul name doesn't really match where they're at in life anymore. And so they've just redone it and come up with something new that is fitting for them at the moment. And that is beautiful. It's a wonderful thing to review. So, what is your soul name? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and I welcome you to do that. And if you liked this, I would sure love it if you subscribed and like it. And if you know somebody that you feel like it could help out and they could benefit from hearing this, please share it with them. That is one of the greatest compliments I could ever have. So I hope that you enjoy exploring your own identity and finding your own soul name. And until next time, remember that your purpose is in your story. Take care.
Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight, for you are a star, shining bright in every step you take. Let your